everybody. Today we're going to do lesson 11.1, which is about populations and samples. This is the only lesson that we're going to be doing in Module 11. The other two are a little bit unnecessary for our purposes right now. If you are interested in looking into it, you can take a peek. Lesson 11.2 is about making inferences from a random sample. So basically, most of what you're going to learn in this lesson, you can apply to the second lesson, and it's, you don't necessarily need a whole lesson on it, so you could figure it out on your own. And then lesson 11.3 is generating random samples, and a lot of that part of the lesson is using technology such as a spreadsheet, which we aren't going to be able to do. It was something that we would have had a little bit more luck with doing together in the classroom. So this is the only one that we're going to do, but again, feel free to check them out and try them out on your own. So we're only going to do this one, which means that when we're done with this, we are going to be done with the unit that we're doing on statistics. So, just a reminder, tomorrow and Friday, we are going to be doing our IXL benchmarks, and so you won't be given any required work. So, at the end of the year last year, I started teaching you guys how to play Sudoku and Kenken. Those of you who remember that. So what I did was I made a video for you guys for everybody actually, because not all of the classes have learned how to play Sudoku for Thursday, and then Friday how to play Kenken, and I'm posting puzzles for you guys so that if you do have some time and you'd like to give it a shot, you can do that. So there won't be a formal lesson on Thursday and Friday, okay? Okay, so let's start with our lesson today, populations and samples. First things first, we're going to talk about what sampling is. So when information is being gathered about a group, so for example, if I'm trying to find out how many siblings everybody has, the entire group of objects or the individuals, so the people who I'm asking, is called the population. Okay, so if I decide that I'm going to ask just the 6th grade or just the 7th grade class, my population would be those people who I asked. Population would be all of the people that you want to know about. So if I want to know in the entire school how many siblings everyone has, okay? The population is the students at the school. The sample is who you actually ask, okay? And they're going to be representing. So if I only ask the 6th grade or the 7th grade, you guys would be the sample. So for just an example, this would be asking only 7th graders, but the population would be all students. Okay, and then you're getting your information just from those 7th graders, and we're saying that it represents all the students, okay? So this is one of the big problems with statistics that we read in the news, statistics that we read online, statistics that we hear on the news. It sometimes is troubling to us, but a lot of the time, the way that the samples are selected are not really what you think they are. So sometimes you have a sample that is, you hear something outrageous like, 75% of people do this. But meanwhile, people is the population. The sample may have been only a few hundred people that they asked. So you have to be very careful with this stuff. So random samples and biased samples, this is where we're going to start determining where this really matters. A sample in which every person, object, or event has an equal chance of being selected is a random sample. So if you completely and totally randomly select people with no method to your selecting, then it's truly a random sample. So if I go to the school and I want to ask kids how many siblings they have, and I stand at the door and I ask every person that walks in, that would be random. But if I go in to a certain classroom and I only ask the kids in there, it's not random. I'm asking a certain group of kids, right? So a random sample is more likely to be representative of a population than a sample that's not chosen randomly. When a sample doesn't accurately represent the population, what we call it is a biased sample. Okay, and we're going to get into that. So for example one, we're going to talk about what the population is, and then we're going to talk about whether or not it's a random sample or a biased sample. So Roberto wants to know the favorite sport of adults in his hometown. He surveys 50 adults at a baseball game. So first, what is the population? The population is who he wants to know the answer about, right? So he wants to know the favorite sport of adults in his hometown. So the population is going to be the adults in his hometown. Okay. And what does he want to know? He wants to know what their favorite sport is. So Roberto decides to survey adults at a baseball game. Is that a random sample or a biased sample? Well, if they're at a baseball game, there's a really good chance that their favorite sport is going to be baseball. So this would be considered a biased sample. Okay? If you want a true representation, you would have to go somewhere really random where there would be no reason for someone who likes a particular sport to be there. So for example, the grocery store, right? Go to the grocery store and ask 50 adults there what their favorite sport is. If you're asking adults who are at a baseball game, they probably like baseball, so that's not going to give a good representation, right? For B, Paula wants to know the favorite type of music for students in her class. So students in her class is the population before we go further. And remember, the population is not who you end up asking. Population is who you want to know about. So for example, the population was here. He wanted to know about the adults in his hometown, but he asked adults at the baseball game. That would be the sample. I'm just going to write that here so that we can kind of know the difference. So Paula wants to know the favorite type of music for students in her class. That's the population. She puts the names of all students in a hat, draws 8 names, and surveys those students. So would you say that this is a random or a biased sample? Yes, a sample. I can't speak today. In this case, this would be a random sample. Okay, there is nothing leaning towards Paula asking students who have a particular music interest. She's randomly selecting them, getting their names out of a hat. That's probably the best way to do it. Okay, so you guys try this your turn question, okay? For a survey, a company manager assigned a number to each of the company's 500 employees, then put the numbers in a bag. The manager chose 20 numbers and surveyed the employees with those numbers. Did the manager choose a random sample? So instead of actually pausing this is pretty simple. We're going to just answer it together, but try to think of the answer first yourself. He's putting he's giving every employee a number, so he doesn't even know what their names are. Then he's putting it in the bag, and then he's choosing 20 of them and surveying those employees. So yes, this is random. Okay, everyone has an equal chance of being selected, right? Okay, now let's talk about bias a little bit more. In survey questions, it's very interesting because sometimes statisticians get their data from surveys. Now, surveys might be done online. They might be sent in the mail even these days. They still do that these days. Most of the time it's done online. And people answer them. You don't have to answer them. Sometimes they're optional. And all that data that you're providing is giving statisticians data to find actual statistics on and come up with statements that they can make about certain things. So a lot of the times, survey questions, the way that they're written, can actually be written in a biased way. So what we're going to talk about is whether or not questions are written in a survey, questions are written with bias or not. So how can we tell? So once you've selected your representative sample of the population, you have to be sure that the data is gathered without any bias. So you have to make sure that the survey questions themselves don't sway people to respond in a certain way. So in other words, if you phrase a question to sound really negative, then it's going to make people less likely to answer that in a positive way. So let's give an example here. This one's pretty good. So in Madison County, residents were surveyed about a new skateboard park. Determine whether each survey question might be biased and explain. Would you like to waste the taxpayers' money to build a frivolous skateboard park? So obviously this question, just reading it, is making you think that this skateboard park is a waste of the taxpayers' money, and the word frivolous means that it's unnecessary, right? So this is definitely a biased question. You're not going to get somebody's real, legitimate opinion necessarily if you're phrasing a question like that. Okay? So this would definitely be biased. It's discouraging, right? It's using negative words. It's basically saying, hey, we're wasting your money by building this. Okay? B, do you favor a new skateboard park? This one is the way you want to do it, okay? You're just asking, do you favor it or do you not favor it? So this would be not biased. So let's just write not biased. There's no opinion, right? So sometimes you can sense what the opinion is behind the question. So here, saying, would you like to waste the taxpayers' money? I mean, that's expressing the opinion of the person who's asking the question. The opinion being that it's a waste of money. In this example, there's no opinion at all. So do you favor it or not? Simple question. Okay, finally, C, studies have shown that having a safe place to go keeps kids out of trouble. Would you like to invest taxpayers' money to build a skateboard park? Now, even though this is a positive question, it's still biased because it's providing extra information to try to make people feel like this is a good thing, right? So this is still biased. In order to get accurate information, you have to state your questions in a survey without any type of opinion related to it at all. So this is biased, kind of pushing people towards wanting to say yes to keep kids out of trouble, right? You don't have to write all this extra out of trouble, okay? Just an example, but you could also say that it's giving an opinion. In this case, it's using positive language, okay? So for these two questions, I'll have you guys, this is it. This is the end of the lesson, so I'll have you pause and try these two and then come back and check your answers. You're going to just tell me whether or not you think it's biased and then give me a quick explanation, okay? Okay, so for the first question, this one may have tricked you, but we'll see. When it comes to pets, do you prefer cats? This is actually biased because it's mentioning cats. The question wants to know what your favorite pet is. But what they're doing is suggesting cats, which might make you think cats, especially if you don't have a favorite pet. So you might have people who don't really know what to say, and then when they read that question, they see cats, and sure, I prefer cats, but that might not really be how they truly feel. So that is a biased question. So what you should really just ask is, what is your favorite pet? And that leads into number 6, which is asking, what's your favorite season? And that is not a biased question. There's nothing leading people to pick a different season. There's nothing, no opinion being stated. There's nothing there. It's just asking what your favorite season is. And that is an example of a non-biased question in a survey. So that's it, guys. And this is the only one, like I said, the only one we're doing in this module. So that's it for this unit. Okay, have fun.